Hello, heroes! Today, let's talk about lesson preparation. At Magic Ears, you do not have to come up with the curriculum. The wonderful team at Magic Ears has already done that, complete with songs, visuals, and the objectives. But that doesn't mean that we as teachers should neglect to plan ourselves for the lesson we're going to teach. It is our responsibility to identify those objectives and make sure we address them in every class. In this video, you'll learn a simple formula that you can use in every class you teach. Step 1. When previewing the lesson, identify the sections. We'll spend most of our time in this video addressing the lesson content, but be careful not to neglect the other parts. It is essential to know the song, prepare your movements or props for the song, as well as knowing how you'll greet the student, conduct the review, and say your final goodbye. There's always room to add some special touches to those elements when we take time to think through how to make them special. Let's look at the lesson content now. We're using the lesson "It is an umbrella" as our sample lesson. When previewing the slides, we can see that there are two sections to this lesson. One section for letter Q, and one section for letter U. Step 2, now that we've identified the sections, identify the points of the lesson. For letter U, we can see that there are 3 points. Introduce a new letter. Teach a new word. Use the new word in a sentence. These are the lesson points for the first half of the lesson. The second half of the lesson, letter Q, has similar points. Once we've identified the points, let's make sure we understand the objectives. Let's begin with point number 1. Introduce a new letter. We want the student to pronounce the letter. We want the student to recognize the letter, and we want the student to practice the letter. We'll continue to identify objectives for each of the points in the lesson. Now it's time to plan the activities. Variety is key. We want to mix it up. We also want to appeal to every student and their learning style. One way to do this is to come up with an activity for each learning style. For example, we'll have one physical, one visual, and one auditory activity for every point. These match up perfectly with the tools we already use in the Magic Ears classroom. Physical activities, TPR. Visual activities, props. Auditory activities, voice variation. We already are using TPR, props, and voice variation throughout the entire class. But let's identify a special way that we are planning to use in the classroom for each one. When it comes time to teach the lesson, we may divert from our plan if necessary, but it's a good idea to have a plan to start from. Now we match these 3 activities with the aims of the lesson. In this example, I've decided to use voice variation to teach pronunciation. You can come up with your own ideas of ways to use voice variation to pronounce the letter. I'll use a flashcard for recognition. Is this you? No, you. There are many ways to use a prop to teach recognition. What are your ideas? And I'll use TPR for practice. You or you. You can think of many more examples and ways to physically use TPR or some other activity to practice. And that's it. Simply repeat for the other points and the other section of the lesson. To review our simple formula, identify the sections of the lesson. For the lesson content, identify the points of the lesson. For every point, identify 3 aims. Match a learning activity that correlates with a learning style to meet every student's need. This is just one way to prepare for lessons. You may use your own way of preparing your lesson plan, and that's fine, as long as you are identifying the points, the aims, and preparing activities to meet those aims. You're on the right track. Thanks for watching, everyone. Happy teaching! Help get the word out about Magic Ears by subscribing to the channel.